Testing, testing. We got it.
Go, Peyton!
Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for sharing this kingdom-filled night with me and, this whole experience. I am so sorry to anybody that had any issues with the link to buy tickets. I apologize about that. That was a struggle on my end too, so I just want to say sorry about that, but thank you so for coming anyways. Yes. This is a student film, and it is about like 10 minutes, so please don't expect like any crazy good cinema piece that you would like when you go see other movies from major film directors, because I'm not a major film director. I'm a student film director.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope you enjoy the show. This is a long time coming, so thank you, and I hope you enjoy it. Tell me about God.
Well, the Bible says he's the King of Kings, he's the Lord of Lords.
I don't even think our human vocabulary even has the words to describe God or even begin to try, but
He is something that doesn't create for the human mind to really comprehend, which is kind of interesting because when you ask, tell me about God, it's not necessarily something you can just explain that anyone will just understand.
God is love, God is patient, God is kind, God's never boastful, and God's always there for you.
In our territory.
There's just no other option in this world that will truly bring you more fulfillment and more peace than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And then even just declare what David declared in the Psalms: the Lord is my shepherd, I lack everything.
He knew that there was a job that needed to be done. He knew that there was a death that needed to be had, and that death was supposed to be ours. But guess what? He went to the cross and he put the death on himself. He put our sin on himself.
I can't think of really anybody that would send their son to die for other people that do bad things. I wouldn't be able to do that. I can say that. I wouldn't be able to send my child to do that.
But isn't it awesome to serve a God that first created everything you needed before He gave you people? God created the heavens and the earth, everything Adam and Eve would need, and then He put them in the garden.
when I look back on just my past and seeing like what God has done in my life, like I would have never planned those things. I would have never imagined those things. And so looking forward, I'm like, man, like if He's in control, like I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know what my story is. Like
there's no way that there's not some like higher creator who's just orchestrating all of this masterful design.
You know my needs. He will bless you more than you can even imagine.
Let's not come into His presence with concerns, worries, and questions. Let's come into His presence with thanksgiving and His chords of praise.
I want to start off by just saying He's just worthy because of who He is. And that sounds like it's not an answer, but it is.
I know God's real and working because of simply the evidence and everything around me. It doesn't add up.
It wouldn't make sense if it truly wasn't real. So that's how, logically speaking, I know God is real.
He has more treasures for you. As you go through this week, look for the treasures.
First day I was filming, I was getting B-roll for a worship service. And right before I was gonna like talk to some friends and pack my camera away and everything, I had an older woman. She's very small. She came up to me and she was so precious in her presence. She just, had something about her. And she came up to me and she held me and she said, "Thank you." And I was like, "Thank you." And she said, "Thank you for bringing your gift." And she pointed at the camera.
Your future is so bright. As bright as Christ is.
the future without God seems really scary. So the future with God, I'm excited for because I know He's in control.
I'm more so excited for the short term. What does my life mean on this earth kind of thing.
But because God is in you and with you, you are more than enough. Am I understand this what I mean, right?
Right now, but he's aware of my present, but he's also aware of my future all at once. So I'm excited to not have to create that success for myself.
It's Jeremiah 29:11. He plans to prosper us, not to harm us, and to give us hope for a future.
And suddenly, Jeremiah 29:11 wasn't just about everybody in my life that I was showing. It was also about me. It was like God was like, hey, I see, I'm the director of this film and I'm getting all this footage for you, but I see the person behind the camera too that not everybody's going to see.
He has poured out His blood, His life for each one of us. And we will do the same. We're called to do the same.
I have to choose him as my shepherd. I have to choose to walk in what the shepherd has for me. Because if I don't, then I can't make that statement. But I have to choose to say, you are my shepherd. Therefore, I will lack no good thing.
Every time I do something my way, it fails, to be quite honest.
So when I look and ask myself, why am I excited for the future? Well, it's because the man that I believe in says, hey, look, you've got some great things, I have some great things in store for you.
Because I've seen what God has done, not only for me, but for the people of this campus, for my friends who have come to us this semester, last semester.
I'm excited for the future with God in the sense of going to heaven, experiencing eternal life, eternal joy, not having to deal with sadness or sorrow or any form of loss. But I know that that's waiting for me.
The Lord is my shepherd. I lack no. One more time. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack no good thing.
And I'm really excited to see what happens this year and the next 2 years, because I think that
If you would have told me 2 years ago today what I was doing now, I wouldn't have believed you, so I have no idea of telling you what I'll be doing 2 years from now. And isn't that just exciting?
We're so far ahead of where I was at your age. And that just makes me even more glad, more excited about your future.
Isn't it exciting how God will prosper in us? And if you would please read that for me.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled.
Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Blessed are those who are persecuted because of their righteousness, and for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Blessed are you when people insult you,
Persecute you,
Falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me.
rejoice, and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven.
For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
That's our Warcry. Y'all be blessed. Have a wonderful evening. Go keep on shining. Go keep on doing what I'm trying to do. We're the community.
that I'm really excited and experienced to share is our speaker that's about to come up here. His name is Kevin Downs. He's the CEO of Kingdom Story Company. Anybody here seen or heard of like Jesus Revolution? Yeah, he's the cool guy behind all that. So without further ado, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh my goodness. Wow, we got a little crowd here. How about that? Well, first of all, I've known Peyton for about 2 hours. And of what I know, I'm incredibly impressed. I'm impressed with your determination. I'm impressed with your no-quit attitude and perspective. I'm impressed with your heart for God in the midst of it all. And again, 2 hours before. That's it. I was in my room, I told her, we went and had a little salad together, and I said, hey, let me go to my room while you go set the theater. So I called my partners. I'm like, I think I just met like the 20-year-old Da Vinci. Like, I don't even know who this person is, but literally, I didn't know who, at 20, and I have 3 kids, I've got all boys, so they're not smart. They're 16, 14, almost 15, and 10. They can barely tie their shoes, let alone at 20, she's telling me stories that she's booked a theater, she's dealing with AMC corporate, she's promoting on Christian radio, she made a movie. Like all these things, I'm like, so what film school did you go to? And she's walking through it. Like literally, like God is so in your heart and your life at 20, you may not know it, but it's present to me, and I've known you for 2 hours.
Wow.
And so I hope that you literally, and I think you will, I hope that you take, and I look back to me at 22, because at 22, and I'm going to correlate this for a minute. At 22 is when I grew up in a small town in Central California, much like this little town. Yes, California has little farm towns, if you believe it or not. And about 30,000 people in my little town. Grew up in cotton and cornfields, and milking cows was my summer job. And I wanted to be an actor. I have no idea why. I was socially awkward and inept and afraid to talk to people. And somehow I wanted to be an actor. And so I didn't know how to do that. So, was in plays and whatnot. And then when I moved to LA, Los Angeles was about 3 hours south of where I grew up. Got involved in a church. That was the first big decision that was the right one. When you move to a new city and you're 20, plug into a church. If you're not going to a Christian college, it's very smart because some of the friendships I made at 20 are still friends today. And I'm 52, so 32 years ago. And God was in that because nobody pushed me into that. That was something that I was like, okay, the world's a big place. I'm terrified, but I trust my Christian friends, and so that's what happened. But so I wanted to be an actor and whatnot, and then I realized I got cast in this movie that was totally a God thing. There were no Christian movies back in 1994. There was a Billy Graham movie every now and again, and there were some library movies that were available in churches. That was about it. And so. In Los Angeles, I got an agent and all of that stuff, and then there's like these little trade newspaper things that came out and were actually on newspaper stands, and you pick them up every Saturday. And it was an industry thing, so in it would be like these open casting calls, so it wouldn't go through the traditional agent thing of how to get auditions. And so we would always pick these up, and so me and a buddy of mine, we noticed this one Saturday, there's an audition at a Christian college, which is never, ever had we seen that. And so we're like, we should go to this. Didn't say it was a Christian movie, didn't say any of that stuff. It just was an audition at a Christian college, and if you looked like you were in high school, which I did when I was 22, you should show up. And so that Saturday, him and I went down there, and we showed up, and there were 200 kids that looked like us. Literally, they all looked like us. It was very strange. And so we did the audition and didn't think about it. And 4 weeks later, we got callbacks. And then 2 days later, him and I got the leads in this movie. And the director didn't know that we knew each other. And so that friend, actually, have you guys seen the God's Not Dead movies? Okay, so Pastor Dave and that's who I'm talking about. So David Way. So we do this movie. It's a 30-minute youth evangelism movie for an organization called Youth for Christ. And did not know that. They did not advertise this. Somehow God orchestrated this for me to be there at the right time and have just enough talent to be able to get cast as the lead in this movie. And the shoot was a complete disaster. The budget was like $15,000. And so, we had no crew. It was just, oh my goodness, it was a mess. But I had the time of my life. It was so fun. And I knew in an instant, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I have no idea what this is, like at all, because I've never experienced anything like it. My first acting job, like probably a lot of actors, was a McDonald's commercial that ran everywhere. I was stopped on the street. This commercial was so prevalent. And so that to me was acting. Like that's what it is. Like you do, commercials and TV shows and movies and whatever. The idea of doing a movie that all of a sudden preaches the gospel and then is translated, and I'm not joking, this little movie was translated into 76 languages all over the world. Did not know that when we made it. This is post-script. And we had no idea what the reach could be, and so they made it fast. Literally like 4 months after we finished shooting, I get a call from the director. He's like, hey, do you want to come to the premiere screening of it? We didn't have like a premiere, but it was the premiere screening. And so Youth for Christ, back in 1994, they did these youth conferences, one in DC and one in Anaheim. And so we were in Orange County, so that's the one that we went to. 8,000 high school students were packed into the Anaheim Convention Center. And they were contemporary Christian music artists, and they were going to show our 30-minute movie. And so we get there, and we hadn't seen the movie. I don't know if this is going to be any good. And so we watch it, 30 minutes, and throughout, as we get in towards the end, you can hear sniffles and cries and all sorts of things. People were moved by it. And I thought, okay, this is cool. And then they'd asked us, hey, do you mind if we set up a little booth? You'll be next to some of the bands, because some of these kids would like to meet you guys. And so we're like, sure. And so we did that. We stayed 4 hours. 4 hours of high school students wanting either pictures with us because they had seen us for the first time up on a 20-minute, 30-minute movie. But also what happened was they started sharing their life with us. They wanted to share their life with us. What God was doing in their house, what God was doing in their home, and what God was doing in their spirit. For some odd reason, them seeing us up on that screen, that movie screen, gave them permission to want to share their heart with us in a way that I had never experienced before as a 22-year-old. And we left that day, and I looked at David. I said, we got to do this, like, for a living. And I said, someday, him and I remember, and him and I both tell this story whenever he's doing interviews and talks and whatnot. But we were out in front of his house that he was renting in Van Nuys. And I remember turning to him and I said, look, one day, Hollywood distributors, Hollywood studios will release the movies that we make that proclaim the gospel all over the world. I didn't think it could happen. Honestly, this is 22-year-old kids dreaming of the impossible, right? Because back then it was like, oh, if you're a Christian, you're bad. Like Hollywood's this, and then the Christians are this, and they just don't mix. The truth is, Because now, just a quick thing. So Kingdom Story Company, which is my company with the Irwin brothers, we did a movie called I Can Only Imagine about 6 years ago. And that led us to sign a deal with our partners at Lionsgate, which is called a first look deal. What that means is they pay us a bunch of money so that all of our ideas go to them first. And we're now 7 years into that deal. They keep wanting to do more of them, right? But only God can orchestrate that, because they know what kind of movies we want to make. We're not like, hey, we use the Christian thing so we can go tell some horror stories. We're not doing that. We're gonna feed our people, because that's what it's about. That is what it's about, and through that, bringing more people to a relationship with God through the power of movies, right? And so many of our movies recently, from Unsung Hero, which is in theaters now. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Like, go see it quick. Go see it this Mother's Day weekend. Go just check it out, because it's a conversation starter. First of all, you'll be blessed by it because it totally lifts up and unifies the family unit in the home. But it's also a conversation starter amongst your friends, whether they're Christians or not, doesn't matter. Your coworkers, your family members, and they're gonna have a lot of questions. And so the point of the movies is for the movies to spark the dialogue and for us to be the hands and feet of Jesus and be prepared for the opportunity. And the movie doesn't do the work. The movie sparks the dialogue. It's a spark, right? We got to be prepared to do the work, for sure. So whenever I see like these critics, not real movie critics, but like people get on social media and like, oh, well, that movie should have had X, Y, and Z and this and that. I'm like, people, you're missing the point. You know, some of our movies, Jesus Revolution, that was about a Jesus revolution, so obviously Jesus is going to be all over it, right? But that's because that's the story. And so we're not going to shy away from that when it's in the story. But then if you look at Unsung Hero, which obviously it's a true story, this family is absolutely a God-fearing, believing family, and so we're going to put that in there. But the goal of it is not necessarily to create sermon moments in the movie, but it's to start conversations that then can be illustrated in sermons. So a lot of pastors actually use excerpts of our films to be able to do that. Some of our movies will have those sermon moments like Jesus Revolution and whatnot. And then some of them are conversation starters. But Unsung Hero, check it out. And the second reason to check it out is for the future generations of storytellers. Like, come on. Okay. If you go buy a ticket to Challengers or Tear It, which is out in theaters right now, those are two different movies. You're telling Hollywood, I support this movie, this is the types of movies I want to go see. Right. Okay? If you buy a ticket to a Marvel movie, which is okay, I buy tickets to Marvel movies, whatever. That's why there's so many Marvel movies made, because we buy tickets. It's the same thing for the Christian movies or the faith-based movies. You buy a ticket, it tells Hollywood, I ate popcorn. Yes, please. Sorry. Kernel in my throat. But anyway, you buy a ticket to a Christian movie or faith-based movie. You're telling Hollywood, this is the type of movie that I want to see. And they listen, right? So the moment that one of our movies doesn't perform, it kills opportunities for other storytellers. It really does. And the reason why is because these movies are tremendous risks, financial risks. All the studios are publicly traded companies, right? So they have to turn a profit. It's just the way it is. It is business. Look at her, already just serving. Doesn't care about the business. Serving. Serving's hard. That's why I should go for it. So they have to turn a profit. And so if we don't show up, and we're a big group, we are a big crowd, there's no doubt about it. If we don't show up, then what Hollywood sees is, oh, that audience doesn't care about the movies that are made for them. That's the message that they get. And sometimes people are like, oh, I'm waiting for it to come out, on streaming. Don't do that. You can see it on streaming, great, but that's not data that they can track, okay? But what they track is when the movie is in theaters. That's the data they track. So it's actually not even as much about how much money is made, as much as how many people are showing up to want to watch this type of movie, right? That is what it's about. And so where I'm at, where my partners are at, we're about trying to find the next generation of storytellers. I'm telling you, this year is a year that is unlike any I've ever experienced for our company. Usually we average one theatrical movie every year and a half to 2 years. We have 4 movies being released this year in theaters. It's a little crazy. It's a little crazy. I'm not sure. We asked ourselves, are we sure we want to do this? Because we do a lot of grassroots marketing, which means traveling around the country like an election, talking to crowds, and telling our story. And it takes a lot of time away from home. It really does. And so there's a commitment there, there's a sacrifice there that you have to take. And so we're aware of that. And but this is the year. We're like, okay, God didn't set us up for us to fail in this moment. I think God set us up for such a time as this right now. Yeah. And so I think we need to take it and we'll deal with next year when it comes. And so I'm glad we did, because when Jesus Revolution came out, that was an interesting one. That dramas, forget about faith dramas, but dramas as a whole had not come back since the pandemic. And so there was a lot of questioning whether movie theaters would survive. And so the weekend that we came out was a very interesting weekend, because it was us and this crazy movie called Cocaine Bear. And, which I saw it, I'm like, it's a crazy movie, but both movies performed way over expectations. And so the word, which is cool, because all of a sudden God, especially with Jesus in the title of the movie, God was being elevated with a spotlight, not that he needs us, but he was being elevated with a spotlight within Hollywood circles, and Jesus Revolution was getting credit in Hollywood for reigniting the box office, which is pretty cool. Really, really cool. And so we were like, okay, this is it. This is working. This is it. This is good. We got to keep going. So anyway, all that to say, there are, for the 2 hours that I've known you now, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. There's a lot of parallels to my story that I see in you, though you got me by a couple of years, that's for sure. But man, my hope for you is that you don't give up. Yeah. And that the biggest piece of advice I can give you is that the failures and disappointments will come, but understand that they're actually not failures and disappointments. They're stepping stones to the success that's about to grace your presence. And I know that sounds like speak. I mean, I get it. But I can say this because it's happened to me. Okay, I've had movies fail miserably on a financial level. It's very, very difficult. To the point where you ask yourself, God, is this it? Is it really worth it to want to continue? My partners, the Urban Brothers, and I, we asked ourselves that while we were making and developing the script for I Can Only Imagine. I can remember the conversation. I was in my car. It was 3 hours. They lived in Birmingham, Alabama. I lived in Orange County, California. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And we were contemplating giving up. And what if we had? Right? in an instant. What if we had? I mean, we wouldn't have made the movie. We were trying to crack the script, and it was just not happening because the A storyline is about child abuse. How do we do this and be effective to where the message of the movie is not about child abuse? That's not the movie we want to make. But yet somehow it's still, we're not walking this tightrope correctly. And it was bothering us to a point where it's like we had to raise the money for that film. It was the last movie that I ever raised money for so far. But we had to raise $15 million, not easy money to raise. And I'm gonna try and shorten this piece, but I think you guys need to hear it. I think you need to hear it. While we were making that film, when we got to the $4 million mark in our raise, we hadn't started yet, but we had raised about $4 million. Our production budget was $7 million net, but we needed $8 because we were using an Oklahoma tax incentive. My partners go, let's just go. And I'm like, what? We have half the money to get through production. I think that's suicide. We can't just go. We got to keep raising. Let's just go. It'll come. I'm like, reluctantly, I'm like, okay, because I'm the one in our partnership that's responsible for building everything. I'm building the crews, I'm hiring the crews, I'm coordinating the cast, I'm doing all of that. And so it made me nervous. I'm like, all right, let's do it. The money didn't come. We were getting close and close, and the casting wasn't coming, it was delayed. We had some of our leads, but Dennis Quaid, who obviously was very important to the movie, was actually not cast until 2 weeks into photography. That's a stressful thing, because when you're shooting a movie for $8 million, you can't start and stop. It's literally like a bullet out of a gun. Can't bring the bullet back in the chamber. It's the ship has left the dock. It's that situation. And so we did something to protect ourselves where we shot half of it before Christmas, took the Christmas break, and then the other half. And that was because if we fell short on the fundraising, we had the Christmas break to make it up. I have pictures on my phone of December 27th. So we had Dennis Quaid, but we still were $7 million short in our total raise. We were about $2 million short in our raise to get through principal photography. We had to have $2 million in about 5 days. And so I have a picture on my phone, and it's me in the ER in Los Angeles with all sorts of wires and whatnot hooked up to me, because for the first time in my life, I'd had heart attack symptoms, like pressure on my chest and all this stuff. And we were at a birthday dinner for a friend of mine, and I told my wife, I said, you gotta take me to the hospital. And so that started a journey. I came back to Oklahoma January 2nd. Happened again, they took me to the hospital again, did more tests, couldn't find anything. The next day, January 3rd, I wake up with a 103-degree fever. And this fever it was so bad that I could not go to set. That's a disaster. And so I called my production manager. I'm like, you got to cover for me. I can't get out of bed. This is bad. We had hosts there that were praying for us and whatnot. So they picked me up at the hotel, brought me to their house. I was there for 2.5 days. I don't remember what happened in those 2.5 days because my fever was so bad. Things happen that are going to push you back, right? From that experience, it only got worse for me. Literally, thankfully, the movie was cast and Dennis Quaid was in, and the brothers were making the movie, and it's turned out great. I started to have these weird symptoms of neurological, like nerve and muscles issues and whatnot. Having gone through COVID, I now understand what that is, but you don't when you're going through it, because you're like, okay, I've got something more serious wrong with me. And so oh my goodness, I had been to all sorts of neurologists and doctors and all this stuff, trying to figure out what was going on with me. Turns out, after 4 years of testing, and I have the best neurologist in the United States in Baltimore. I don't live in Baltimore. Johns Hopkins, and I think I have a degree in neurology now, but turns out I got a virus. I got a virus that caused destruction in my immune system. So, which I'm like, okay, at least we know what it is. It's not Lyme disease, it's not MS, it's not all these other things that the people are ticking on. But COVID actually taught me that, this post-viral syndrome and some of these things that people go through after having COVID. It's unexplainable. Very similar to what happened to me on the set I can only imagine. All that to say, things are going to happen. There's going to be spiritual warfare in the journey of bringing messages of Christ all over the world. And when those things happen, you can't quit, you can't give up. You've got to persist and carry on. And you got to know that. And so I think you have a gift. And so since our little salad dinner, I asked Peyton, I said, hey, she told me her story of this tonight. I still couldn't believe it. And I said, how can we help you? And she said, well, if I can be so bold, an internship would be great. I said, okay. What does that entail? Do you want to be on a movie set? Do you want to be in an office? Like, you tell me. And what do you need? Because you're still in school. She goes, I need 40 hours. I said, well, that's easy. That's like a week. Do you want to be on a set or in an office? She goes, I want to be in an office. I want to be in the room where it happens. And I'm paraphrasing, but it sounds cool because it's Hamilton. And so I said, done. I said, you tell me the dates. My office will figure it out. Woo! During our break, I called my COO, Brandon Gregory, who's amazing, and my partner, Andy Irwin, and they're excited to meet you. And so that opportunity is there. It's up to you to figure it out as far as whether you want to take it. The other thing that I've not told you is, seriously, I'm so impressed by what you, first of all, I know how much I cost. I'm not cheap. I get it. Like, who does this? Like, literally, who does this? I was so impressed by your faith to figure something out, to have a dream, to be able to persist, to say, you know what, this is my starting point. Because to me, and you were all nervous about tonight, which I totally get. I said, it's not about, for you at 20, what's up there. It's about what you've done to get that up there. Yeah. Okay? And you need to know that. Because our world needs voices like yours. God willing, you're going to outlive me by a lot. And I get asked a lot, which I was going there and I went on a little dovetail there. What's going to happen when you die? Who's going to take over the mantle of what you're doing? And my answer is, I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to take the next generation or the generation after that to be able to, and I pray for it, God's got to put something in the spirit of these young people to be able to want to tell his stories and do the hard work. Making movies and releasing them and marketing them is not easy. It is hard. It is hard, even for us. And we've done a lot of them, and we have more coming in the pipeline. And so I'm so impressed by what you've done, because you can't teach. Trust me, I have employees, we try to teach them certain things that you did on your own. And you, I mean, I buy a little kids pack, right? A little kernel stuck in my throat. They're like, so, are you with the big group? I said, yeah. All right, you get a discount. I'm like, what? I'm like, can I ask you how much that discount is? And she told me it was about 50% or so. I'm like, who does that? Like, who? And I don't think that's a standing AMC thing. Like, somehow, I don't know. I'm not sure how you did that, but anyway. Kingdom Story Company is going to award you with a $2,000 scholarship. Which will be immediately. You somehow now have my cell phone number because God worked it out that flights here are nearly impossible. And no. And so what's funny is I live in Franklin, Tennessee. We just moved there in July because our office is there. Our office has been there for 5 years. I didn't realize until I landed here that it was way quicker to drive. I was like thinking. So that was a fun day to get here. But I'm so glad that I'm here because I'm so glad that I met you, because you give me hope for the next generation of storytellers, which is what I'm working towards right now. And I don't want to put pressure on you because you're 20, and I think you should enjoy this element, this phase of your life, and not try to worry about figuring everything out. But know that there's no strings, there's no like, hey, you have to do X, Y, Z for this $2,000. You could literally take your friends to Hawaii, I don't know. But I trust that God is going to give you the wisdom to do what you need to do with that money. And we're happy to do it because people like you is what we want to empower. And you're a rare commodity. So hats off to you. So anyway, that I went way over. But that's my story. We're gonna do a little Q&A, yes? Do we have time? Yeah!
Testing. All right, cool. Okay, so we are going to do a Q&A between Kevin and I, and then any questions you guys might have. I'm going to start the conversation just with like one question to get it going, but these can be questions about the process of making the film, the process of getting, tonight put together. Any questions you might have for Kevin or anything? Yeah. Okay.
Go for it. Who's got a question? Don't be shy.
How hard was it to secure the theater?
Oh gosh, okay. Avery and Maddie have a microphone, so anybody else, if you have a question, if you just want to raise your hand, we'll get you set. It was very hard. I had the Lincoln Theater at first, and then there were some booking issues, and then I did get on the phone with AMC Corporate, like how Kevin mentioned. I did not mean to. I went to the website because my friend John Wyatt, who has been a huge major help on this film. Are you at, John? Yeah, John! Woo! I went to John, it was the next day, and I was like, we lost the theater, and I'm about to go book a guy named Kevin Downs, who I really am interested in and would love to work with. Like, what do I do? I lost the theater, and I'm about to book him all within 24 hours. And he was like, just do it at AMC. And I was like, okay, all right, good idea. Thank you for being the voice of wisdom in the moment. I got on AMC.com, and I did some deep digging and realized that I did that, and accidentally ended up calling the head of events and operations at corporate, and I was like, I was very demanding. I was like, I'm having a documentary premiere. I don't have a theater, but I have a speaker. Are you the person that's going to get this done or not? And she was like, yeah, I'm actually the person that approves everything. I said, great, I need this done by tomorrow. And she said, okay. And I was like, all right, cool. Getting the theater was very hard, but I had to, I don't know, switch into business brain, I guess. I don't know, but I don't know, something just, the Holy Spirit just snapped in me, I guess. And I was like, gotta get this done. Assignment for the kingdom. Not having a theater. We gotta have one. So, yeah. Thank you, Dad, for that question.
I like that.
Yeah.
Hang on, the mic.
Unless you got a bill. Okay. You need a mic.
Sorry about that. It's G. I
Hi.
love for her. Love you, sis.
Oh,
So my question to you is, describe your creative process and how it has evolved over time, including YouTube.
with me with this project and him
Yeah.
with his career?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Oh, you're doing great.
Thanks. So all this originally started as a class assignment. I am an honors student, along with being an arts tech major with a focus in cinema and video, long title, I know, anyways. So I took an honors creative documentary filmmaking class with my favorite professor in the entire world, who I've known forever. His name is Eric Hector. I was like, sweet, I get to take an easy honors class where I get to make movies, and it's with Eric, so awesome, I'm gonna have so much fun. And then Eric said, okay, your assignment for the semester is to watch a documentary and present on it, and to make a 5-minute documentary about something that makes people excited for the future. And I was like, okay, my immediate thought was God, Jesus, whatever, he's got me. And when I said that and I presented that to the class, it kind of freaked them out. And I was like, oh, I guess not everyone thinks like this. Okay. So then the challenge was, how do I take what I know, that I know that Jesus is king and that Jeremiah 29:11 is real, and that through Christ and the victory that was won on the cross and everything, that I am also victorious, whether it's in career or whatever. And that this, like, no matter what my future holds, like, God's got it. How do I take what I know and present that to others, and how do I tell other people that, like, other people believe in this too, like, it's not just me.
Right.
So, yeah, I texted David Ndembe, who is the preacher, he's on the poster and everything, and I was like, hey, I'm doing a documentary, do you mind if I film? And he was like, yeah, like, cool, like, go ahead, I guess. And I was like, thank you, I need B-roll of people praising God. And he was like, okay. I was like, all right. So then I started filming, and then I got some friends together for interviews, and then a lot of people kept hearing about it as I kept filming, because I got maybe 6 weeks of worship service. So I have days in church that I didn't even use in the doc, because I have so much footage. Anyways, and I remember saying to Jody Lockwood, who is here somewhere, she helps coordinate everything with the church that I go to, with the movement that I go to, Avada. I was like, I'm thinking about doing a premiere on campus. And when I said on campus, she goes, yeah, like at the Lincoln? And I was like, a theater off campus? Sure, why not? And then one thing led to another. I wasn't expecting any of this. When I first got the assignment, I was like, oh, maybe I'll post this on Instagram or on YouTube, and maybe it'll get 2,000 likes or not likes, but views or something, You know, I wasn't expecting. Hi, I wasn't expecting you. I was expecting So yeah, that's my journey with this film in particular, and this is the biggest production that I have done as a director. So yeah.
Yeah.
My creative process has changed over 30 years, as you would expect. Although, amazingly enough, it's very similar to the first film that I produced when we knew nothing, which was not that Youth for Christ film, because I was just hired as an actor. But about 4 years after that, produced my first film with my buddy David. And how it started was we were encouraged by another producer to make a movie. And he goes, if you make a movie about this, I think I can get you a sale of 5,000 VHS tapes. For you guys that don't know what VHS is.
Right?
At $12 each. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's $60,000. And we can make this for $20,000 and profit $40,000. This is amazing. And so that's how it started. So we wrote a script. I'm a terrible writer, so that was the last script I ever wrote. We raised $20,000, of which we each wrote $2,000 checks, because we felt like when we were pitching, we had to tell investors we didn't know. We were writing checks. $2,000 to me was like a yearly salary. I mean, it was a lot of money. And so we shot the movie and went 300% over budget. And so we spent 60, we spent it all. But it was an absolute education because the movie, that ministry picked it up. A bunch of ministries picked it up. And it was actually the foundation. There was no Christian movies in Christian bookstores. And I literally pounded the pavement and started that whole arena with our film. And what I did was I would go to, oh my God, I did this for 2 years, nonstop, around the country, going to Christian bookstores saying, I will give you my movie for free, you pay me if it sells. And so all that was in Christian bookstores was VeggieTales and cartoons at that time. That was it. There were no, this is before Left Behind, this is before all of that. And so we got enough to do it. But what it did is it started to generate an audience that was hungry for the movies that would eventually lead to more dramas being made and all of that stuff. And so that's the smartest thing I've ever done. I don't take any credit for it because you have to make movies for an audience. Okay, and so today at Kingdom Story Company, we are very specific with the stories that we tell. Very specific. If we don't know how to market a movie, we don't develop that script. Period. Like, there's no questioning of, this is a great idea, we should totally make it, we'll figure it out later. Nah. We have to see the marketing. It's partly why Lionsgate signed us, because of the marketing element of us, but we also make good movies that audiences love, clearly by the exit polling and all of that stuff, which is very high. And so, make movies for an audience. Making a movie is hard work. How hard was it to make your movie?
Extremely hard.
Yeah,
Thank you for
it's hard.
asking. Yeah.
The older you get, it's still hard. Just because you have bigger budgets, still difficult. Ordinary Angels and Jesus Revolution were same budget, $14 million to make, and another $15 million for each of them to market. So each of them are about $30 million each that we have to recoup. That's a lot of money. It's a lot. And so if you don't understand who's going to want to like the movie you're trying to tell, that's going to be the last movie you do in a long time. And so we got to be very specific in our storytelling.
Cool. Is that it?
Right here.
Okay, we had one over here.
Oh.
We'll get to you in a second, Micah, I promise.
Sorry, so I have one question that's less serious. I know you probably have an answer for, and then I have one question that's a little more serious. So the first one is how many years until you're finished with school and available for employment? And then the second one is...
Get in line.
And the second one is, what is your God-guided vision of what you might want to do with that future if you had unlimited opportunity and resources? Do you want me to say it again?
No, because I got the answer.
Okay, great.
I'll probably be graduating this time next year. I accidentally took too many classes, and I'm actually a junior, not a sophomore, so we'll see how that goes. My bad. Okay, I have an answer for the second one. It's going to seem like a very dramatic answer, but it's how I feel I receive the word from God, okay? So, this project was originally called Balm in Gilead because somewhere in Jeremiah says, "For there is there no balm in Gilead," and then Jesus comes, and obviously, he's a healer, whatever. You guys know. And I literally, it was probably like 2:30 in the morning. I was just looking through some footage, trying to organize it all, and the audio was just playing, and I had my head down, and I was making notes of all the footage I had, and I heard David say, "That's our war cry," and I was like, that's the title of our film because that's such a cool name. Like, I don't know what that means, but I feel like I should name it that. So, what our war cry means, or what war cry means, excuse me. And war cry is a cry that is shouted by a soldier on the battlefield to rally an army. That is a worldly term of war cry. Spiritually, when you cry during spiritual warfare out to the kingdom of heaven and for Jesus to come down and heal, it's very powerful. And Jeremiah, that's basically what he was doing. He was on the spiritual grounds, on the spiritual warfare. And, Jeremiah was kind of losing his brain because he was like 19, 20 years old, prophesizing all this stuff, and no one believed him, so he was crying out to the Lord a lot. And then eventually Jesus comes, obviously not in his lifetime, but my point with this is, okay, I have been telling my mom and a lot of spiritual leaders in my life, I really feel like a soldier. I was like, look, I know I'm not in the military, but like, holy cow, like, even people who like aren't like God-fearing or Christian or whatever, they're looking me directly in the eyes and they're giving me orders in military terms, and they're all in agreement. Like, whether it's my preacher or it's my professor or whatever. Like, the most recent term I heard was at ease, and I heard it like 6 or 7 different places in my life, and it was 2 weeks ago after I got baptized. I heard it in a bunch of different areas of my life of people that don't even know each other. They would just look at me and be like, at ease or at rest. And I'm like, whoa, like, I know I'm all worked up over this documentary, but God is saying, like, you know, like, relax and everything. And like, everyone kept saying this is an assignment. And it started as this is a homework assignment, and then it started as no, this has always been a kingdom assignment. And yeah, and there's been other terms and words and stuff. I didn't get much sleep last semester making this doc, so I couldn't tell you all the experiences I've had. But I mean, the way that God speaks through people, my mom, when I was little, said, how come I have to yell at you for you to know what's going on? And I said to her the other day, I think this is why. I think because, like, if I understand it as if I'm like a soldier that's taking orders and following these assignments and crying out to God when it's, you know, when it's needed, that's how I'm gonna get it. Like, you have to send 6 different people in my life to look at me and scream at ease, or I'm gonna freak out and probably have a panic attack until Kevin gets here. Like, so does that answer your question, Ben? It's like that's what I see myself doing. I see myself just taking orders like a soldier, whether it's going out into these dark places where Jesus is not and trying to bring the light there and spread the gospel, or, you know, taking the camera with me, or telling stories fictionally, whatever it may be. This was an order for the kingdom, and we cried out to the Lord together, and, you know, whatever's next, we'll see. I'm sure like 8 people will walk up and be like, you know, whatever, soldier command. Here's the thing, I hear the words and then I have to look them up because I'm not in the military, so I don't know what they mean, but they just keep, you know, they're military terms. Anyways, so it's kind of corny, but it's the truth, and it's how it feels. It's how I felt this entire process. It's just like a soldier. And I literally have had people, a couple weeks ago, right before I got baptized, like, prayed over me, and they like pushed me up and they said, at ease, and I was like I was a soldier just like straightening up and relaxing. I was like, whoa. Okay, Holy Spirit, I hear you. I will breathe. Anyways, long explanation, sorry. But yeah, thank you.
Whenever I was 13 years old, I felt God calling me into full-time ministry. I've spent the last better part of 30 years of my life especially focused on ushering children into the kingdom of God. So, and I love movies, love entertainment. So, Kevin, my question for you is, you mentioned 2 times during speaking today that you make movies for a specific audience so you can market to them. And you also mentioned that you wanted your stories not necessarily to preach or tell to a point, but to open up conversations that people can talk about. Has the Kingdom Story Company ever considered focusing on stories that are for children, to open up dialogue and conversations with them about speaking about these things at a younger age and talking about the kingdom at a younger age, even if it involves, you know, heavier special effects, things like that, to capture the imaginations of children and lead to capturing their hearts?
November 8th, we have a movie called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which is based on a New York Times best-selling book, children's book. We shot it in December and January. How many kids did I have? Gosh, almost 60. Which 60 kids on a movie set means 60 parents on a movie set.
Maybe this film was hard, you guys. The one child you saw was so hard to handle. Not to interrupt, I apologize. Yeah.
So, why I'm excited about Best Christmas Pageant Ever is because it's the first movie of ours where we're going to be marketing to the entire family. Cool. And so, because the actors are kids, there's a couple adults, but the big roles are all these kids, and that's the story. And what's beautiful about it, if you don't know the book, it's about the small town that does the nativity story, their passion play every year. This is the 75th annual, and everything that could go wrong does go wrong, and there's kind of like the town bully kids that are, the kids are afraid of. The whole story is told from the perspective of a child, right? So there's narration from the adult version of that child who we meet at the end of the movie. And so you see it through their eyes, right? And so what's beautiful is there won't be a dry eye in the house when you watch this movie. The entire third act is the play that comes together And so there's these misfit kids that kind of overtake the pageant. They've never been a part of it. And our hero's mom ends up being the director of the pageant for reasons that are just kind of funny. And so the assumption is the pageant is going to go disastrously wrong, right? What happens is these misfits end up teaching us the true meaning of the gospel.
Wow.
And so the play is just the third act is the play. The play, there's no dialogue in the play, none. The play, it's all just watching the birth of Jesus and Joseph and Mary and the angels and the wise men and all that kind of play out. And as you see Mary holding Jesus, and the way this was shot was so brilliant, no dialogue. And you see this young little 12-year-old who is our bully in the whole story, and is playing Mary, and she's holding Jesus with tears coming down her face. There's no dialogue, right? And all of a sudden, the entire town sees the birth of Jesus in a way they never saw before. And it's powerful. And so the director of that movie is Dallas Jenkins, who does The Chosen, right? So we did the movie with him. That answers your question. November 8th, theaters everywhere. It's going to be great.
That's awesome.
I mean, look, we're animation. Will we get into animation? Probably not. It's expensive. That's a whole business within and of itself. But certainly our heart is to be able to reach families and be able to reach kids. I want to make stuff that my kids like.
Yeah.
So that's important for me. But also to empower female voices. So that's part of our next phase, is to be able to empower female voices, and because not everything needs to be from a male point of view. But it just so happens our company was founded by 4 guys, so it is what it is. I mean, as an actor, the movie I'm known for most is a movie called Courageous, which is all about guys. And the next movie I made after that was because my wife said, "When are you going to make a movie for me?" And so that was Mom's Night Out. Literally made that movie because my wife said, "When are you going to make a movie for me?" It's hilarious. I mean, people wonder, you wonder, like, how do they come up with these things? That's literally why that movie happened. And because I wanted to make a movie that elevated what she has done for our family and for our kids and whatnot, but why not do it in a way that's very humorous and fun? And so anyway, the movie's great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's wherever it is. Anyway, that's the answer. Sorry.
There's one over here.
Hi. Hi. I'm a kid, and I'm a female, so that was really cool. What you said was beautiful. That thing was beautiful. I really loved all of that. That was amazing. Hold on, I have my question written down, or else I'm going to forget it. So, my question is, what do you hope to accomplish in the future of your career, and what is your ultimate goal? Any future plans already made for a project? So basically, like, what can we expect from you in the future? Both of you.
He's a bit more professional than me, so there's this thing called NDAs.
No. I told you about November 8th. I'll answer it first. You can think of your answer. Okay. October 4th, which is our 3rd movie of the year. We've never done this before, so this tells you that our partners at Lionsgate must think we're special or something. I don't know. So they asked us to watch a movie that was already made but hadn't been released yet, and if we would come along and put our names on it and executive produce it, put our company name on it, and help promote it. I said, we'll take a look at it. Let's take a look at it. We watched it. It's a movie called White Bird. There's trailers that are out there. It has Helen Mirren in it. It's set in there was a movie called Wonder. It's sort of set in that universe, but not really. But why this movie is so, first of all, it's incredible filmmaking. The director is a savant. But why it's important is because the themes of the movie are all about kindness, and the gospel is about kindness, right? So, but it's also a very pro-Israel movie. And so for us in this time period, we're like, you know what? Not only is the movie excellent, but we don't just want to judge it by that. What is the message that we're going to try and get out to churches? Why people should go and see this movie? And both of those themes are incredibly important right now. And so that's October 4th. The Christmas pageant is the November 8th. And then we have a movie that we shot during the pandemic that we're just sitting on called The Unbreakable Boy, which is an incredible film. Again with kids. That will come out February 21st. And then we, I'll tell you anyway. This hasn't been announced yet, but whatever. So we're in pre-production on a movie that is with Amazon. We start shooting June 3rd in Oklahoma, and it's currently untitled, so I can't give the title because there's a working title, but it kind of doesn't mean anything. But the main character is an 11-year-old African-American girl from 1911 Oklahoma. And so the story is about, it's a true story. It's the story of the first African-American millionaire in the United States, which is an 11-year-old girl. And so she was gifted 160 acres from the federal government. And back then, when they were doing these land deeds, the land was kind of worthless, just junk land in Oklahoma. Somebody didn't do their homework with this little one's land, and underneath her land was the largest oil reserve in North American history. And so the story is about her, and her and her family are Christians, and so that comes out in the story. The story is about her having faith like a mustard seed, and then seeing her faith played out as she proves to people that there is oil underneath her land, and then her single-handedly, as an 11-year-old, fighting off these wildcatters and these con men who know there's oil and are trying to cheat her out of it through the court system and through just sheer force, based not brutality, but just through force and conning her and all that stuff. And in the end, she wins. And so it's the power of what one little person can do if they set their mind to it. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? Not that you're little, but it's a tearjerker. It's so cool. And so that movie's going to come out at the end of next year. And we shoot it starting June 3rd in Oklahoma. That's my summer. My summer is shooting the movie. We have 5 or 6 others that are right behind it. We'll shoot another one this fall that I cannot say what that is because it will be a big deal. But I'm excited about it. The script just came in last week. I was crying my eyes out when I read it. I told Lionsgate, Ray, shoot, let's go. So we'll shoot that in the fall. That'll come out Easter of 26. So we have we're going to average about 2 to 3 a year. Probably won't be 4 a year. It's a little much. But that's the goal. As long as God continues to have the doors open, we want to allow it to, and physically, as long as we can do it, we want to do it.
Okay. Well, I'm not as professional, but
Yet.
Yes. So I am gonna definitely spend, I mean, it's all in God's hands. I have a 3-part movie idea in my head. I'm definitely going to spend the next year of my life writing that because I'm an honors student and an arts tech student, so I have projects, a big project I have to do. So I am going to write this movie.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's gonna be telling parts of the Old Testament of the Bible in a fictional way. And this also circles back to your question earlier. I see myself doing this because I love doing this documentary, and I might do more in the future. I don't know. That's all in God's hands. That's the whole purpose of the doc anyways. But when I was marketing this documentary, I was reaching out to, churches and Christians and everything. And I was also reaching out to people who aren't in faith and don't go to church and everything. And there's a disconnect. And I went to church a couple of weeks ago, and my pastor came up and I spoke about the doc, and I said, please come and everything. But he said, people won't go to church, but people will go to a movie theater.
Yeah.
So I think that if I could, through the power of God, if he allows it, and filmmaking, tell biblical stories. Angel Studios is kind of doing it now, but biblical stories in more of a fictional, modern way so people can understand. So in the long run, the dream is this 3-part movie. I will be writing the first script and making something called a director's book for it within the next year, and then presenting on it probably this time next year. But yeah, and then I have some ideas for other stuff, but they're just things that are in my notes app right now, or jotted down on a random sticky note somewhere in my desk. It's also finals, so if I get a movie idea, I'm just shoving that aside right now. Anyways, so yeah, he has more things written in stone, and I have things that I have half a notebook filled of this movie that I'm gonna write, and the steps of how I'm gonna do it in all 3 and everything. So hopefully, pray about it. So yeah. Hope that answers the question.
Anybody else? Way back there.
What's so expensive about making a movie?
Good question. What's so expensive about making a movie? Actors are not cheap. But really, for the movies, for those $15 million movies, most of the budget goes to the cost of crew. Crew at that budget level, not cheap. It's, you're signing union agreements and all that stuff, so those rates are already preset. Unless they're department heads, they can negotiate a little higher, depending on who they are and what their quotes are. But yeah, it's just crew's the big thing. And then when you get into post-production, all the editorial and the music, this will blow your mind. So the budget, I told you the budget of my first film, $20,000, second film, $600,000. Actually, my first 6 or 7 movies were all under $600,000 budgets. Okay. On Jesus Revolution, in post-production, we have a score, which is the music, right? So that's the original music that a composer writes, and then we hire an orchestra and that whole thing, 100-piece orchestra and all that stuff, and it's recorded. But then there's also what we call needle drops, and that is we license songs and pieces of songs to go in there. And you have to pay they have to pay the publisher of that song, as well as whoever owns the master recording. And you negotiate those things out. And so songs can be all over the map. From $3,000 to over $1 million for a song. So it's just all over the map. So the soundtrack for Jesus Revolution, which is all the needle drops, was over $700,000, which is more than the budget of my first 6 movies. So that gets expensive. The reason why we spent that amount is because we thought it was important for the audience to feel like they're in that era and in that time period, because if they feel like they're in that time period, they'll be drawn into the story more, and they'll feel like they're there instead of watching being there. And so it was important for us to do that. Not every movie, we probably average about $200,000 per movie in song licensing. So anyway, it all adds up. Our budgets, just to give you an example, are about 140 pages, right, of different lines of expenses and whatnot. Each movie is about that. Just so many costs. We hire 250 people on average per movie. It's a lot, not including visual effects artists, because if it's heavy visual effects, that number can triple. Like it did for American Underdog. Anybody see American Underdog? 2. Not a football crowd. So it's a story of Kurt Warner. It came out Christmas 2 years ago. we shot that in the pandemic, which, you know, like literally in the heart of the pandemic, which meant there were rules that we could not hire extras. And so this is a football movie.
Oh my God.
Right. With crowds, with sideline people, with all of this stuff. This is the hardest movie I've ever made. Our production budget was $28 million. Marketing was 35. Oh my goodness. There's a risk. 2 people have seen it. But anyway, the COVID rules, which were put together at that time by the state of Oklahoma, we were still living under that thing, but also by the actors union. They had all these rules, and so the most background, the most extras that we could have at any one time was a 3-hour period over 3 days, and they had to be at least like 150 feet from the camera. That was ridiculous. So most of the movie was visual effects. And the movie, I mean, if you check out the movie, it looks really good for not being allowed to have extras in your movie. So anyway, that's an example of like, where does all the money go, right? It's an incredible, it's like being a producer of movies that size, like being a contractor. You're just building out all sorts of things.
Okay. I think like, is one more okay? We don't want to keep you guys here all night. Sound good? 2 more?
Hey, you hired me. I'm here as long as you want.
Trenton, 2 more sound good? Audience, is that good? Does anybody have like a question out there I can ask? Okay, we'll do you guys and then we'll
Kevin, can you share a God story where God just showed up recently in a production?
Yeah, let me pick one. Oh my goodness, there's plenty of them. You know what, I like, to me, Jesus Revolutions, there's so many stories in Jesus Revolution. I'm going to go to that one. When we were planning it, so we shot that movie in 2 states. We shot it in LA, which is Lower Alabama. And then we shot some in Southern California. And so most of it was shot in Lower Alabama because it's cheaper. So, and there's a big tax incentive in Alabama. So that was how we got the budget made. But anyway, when we were doing the planning, we knew we had to shoot at the real Pirates Cove in Orange County, California, because it was basically a character in the movie. But the way our production schedule was mapping out, we were going to be shooting in the first week of March, and we needed people to get in the water for 12 hours in a clip. And if you know the Pacific Ocean, it's cold, like really cold in March, like crazy cold. And so people were very nervous, understandably so. The studio was nervous. Lionsgate was, we don't understand how you're going to do this. And so in my mind, I'm like, I got to come up with an answer that will pacify them. It's probably not real, but I'm like, it'll work out. That's a bad answer. But anyway, they let us go with it. So Jonathan Rumi, who's in the movie, plays Jesus the Chosen. So he is in the movie, and he's asking us, how are we going to do this? And so our plan at the time was we bought, oh my goodness, so many wetsuits so people were going to wear wetsuits underneath the water where you couldn't see it. And that was a bad plan, but that's the only thing we thought of. So Jonathan, this is 3 months out. So this is in January. We're going to shoot the first week of March. Jonathan just goes, I'm going to pray for a heat wave. I'm like, you do that. And we didn't think of that. So we go into the movie, we start making it, this, that, and the other. When it's about 10 days out, as a producer, you start, in your head, you have to start prepping everything that's coming in the next 10 days, right? And so at that point, I'm starting to look at weather patterns in the West Coast, and we're still in Alabama at this time. And there's like this high pressure system starting to move down from the west. I'm like, no. And we get to about 3 days out, it's now all over the news, a literal 100-year heat wave was going to descend on Southern California for the 3 days that we were on the beach in Pirates Cove. And so, again, I'm thinking nothing of it. We still had the wetsuits on standby, and we had over 1,000 extras. I mean, there were a lot of people. There were a lot of problem solving that we had to deal with in this moment. We get there on day one, and down on the sand at about noon, the sand starts getting really hot, and that heat wave had descended upon us. And I tell you what, on the beach on March 3rd, when we shot that movie, it was like 96 degrees. It was, in fact, we instead of the cold, our paramedics, and we, you know, on a film that size, you're carrying 3 to 4 paramedics out of safety reasons. Our paramedics treated 12 people for heat stroke. Didn't quite plan on that happening. But it was the better alternative to hypothermia.
So many fish that hurt.
And so it was a God thing. It was totally a God thing. Like, God just provided this heat. And here's what happened. During that time, when we're filming these baptisms taking place, and we took the first 3 hours of the morning and had all sorts of camera angles, from wide angles. I think we had 4 cameras working that whole sequence of the baptism. So all sorts of different angles and tight, wide, and all that stuff. I remember when we were doing the wide, and the directors are, you know, they're orchestrating how we're going to block this and what we're going to do. We had Jonathan room me out in the water, and then we put a pastor friend of ours who does actual baptisms in Pirates Cove. They weren't close-ups, so it didn't matter. We put him out in the water for line number 2. And we're going to roll camera for about 5 minutes, because again, we're wide, so there's no dialogue or anything, can't hear anything. And so we roll camera, and I remember watching this, and it's a 5-minute take, and there's like a line of like 10 people on each going in the water, and like something's happening out in the water. Like, I'm like, okay, they're not like acting, doing that. What is going on there? And so we yell cut, and all of a sudden, because each one of them did about 6 baptisms during the take, and we yell cut, and they walk in, and both of them had this sparkle in their eyes and this glee on their face, and they're like, you'll never believe what just happened. Literally, and each of them said the same thing. The extras, I don't even know where they came from. They would come up to them and go, will you baptize me for real? And so each of them, Jonathan and then the real pastor, were like, wait a minute, during the take, right? We can't read the lips, it's just so far out. Do you know who Jesus is? And they're like, no. And so they're walking them through who Jesus is, and they're doing these baptisms while we're filming. Wow. And they're explaining this to us, and each of them did it. So it's not like they did it just for Jonathan because he's a celebrity or whatever. They were doing it for the pastor. And it, like, you start having tears coming down your face. We're like, is it God? Is this happening right now? Total God moment. Total God moment. Awesome. Wow.
Is that you? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, okay, anyways. Yeah, sorry, last question.
Alrighty. So I know, me personally, I kind of struggle with that when it comes to the creative process. So I kind of want to know, like, what do you guys both go through to like overcome that doubt and persevere?
Let me start, because she'll end the night. Yeah, man, look, you have to be patient in the development process. My partners get impatient. Our staff gets impatient. If stuff takes longer than it needs to be. You know, we have some scripts right now that are very important stories that we're going to tell, and it's taking a little long, but it's okay, because it needs to be right, and it needs to be right. The last thing we want to do is to go into production, and we've done this before, and sometimes it works out okay, and sometimes it doesn't. But you want to be, there's nothing like having a script that you know, like what we did with Jesus Revolution, is going to impact people all over the world. And when you know it, when you're shooting it, there's nothing like it. And that's what drives us to say, okay, you know what, let's be patient. Let's not rush this. We're going to work it. We like to say we tend to beat things up to the ground almost. We do that in the edit as well. We make movies in 3 processes. There's the writing, and we'll strip it apart. There's the editorial, and we do something with our films where the studio does it with us, but we do a lot of test screenings. And what we do that for is for the editorial. So if something's not working, we want to know why it's not working with an actual audience that's never seen this movie. It doesn't have any tie to us, nothing. And we'll test things a dozen times, maybe more, before we lock the edit and then finish the movie out. That's the second phase. And then the third phase is, the second phase is production. We're shaping, molding the production. Third phase is that in the editorial before we get ready to release it. So patience is my advice to that. Prayer is another advice to that.
Yeah.
The one script I wrote, again, not a writer, acknowledged my lack of giftedness in that arena, but every day before we wrote, we were on our knees, me and my writing partner, we were on our knees praying that God would fill us with the words and with the wisdom to be able to write what he wanted us to write. And we had no idea what we were going to write that day, and that was usually every day. Wow. So,
Thanks. I don't know how to follow up on that, but yeah, definitely prayer. My short-term answer, like how I get over things in the moment, this is so stupid. I listen to That's Life by Frank Sinatra and have like a little dramatic moment, and then I move on. I'm like, oh, that's life. I've been poor, I've been whatever. That's been nothing lately. Yeah, I'm being so real, you guys. I do that. I put on my headphones and I'm like, oh, that's life. Okay, whatever. Anyways, the things that carry me out more long term, though, rather than just giving myself little 5-minute dramatic moments and then moving on, putting that time limit on myself. I saw a video, and it was this girl, and she was talking about the gift of creation and how the enemy can't create, right? God is the creator, and she was talking about it from a woman's perspective. And she said, she was like, I didn't ever want to have kids, and then God confronted me and was like, I gave you the gift that I have, that is creation. I didn't give a whole sex this generation, like this gift. This is the gift of woman, is to be able to create. And so after that, she has kids now or whatever. And I just kind of sat, I paused the video and I sat and I was like, I have a really hard time because I come from a family of blue collar men and these people that, do work that is essential by COVID terms, work that, has to be done. So to be creative, it's very hard for me sometimes to process that okay, what I'm doing actually matters. But when I watched that video, I was like, okay, being able to see something in my head and then bring it out, that's the gift of creation. The enemy doesn't have that.
Right.
So, I press back into God and I press back into okay, no, you don't need to enlist in the military or go work at Caterpillar or whatever, whatever you think might be essential. God gave you this gift. He gave you the gift of creation, and it's not to say that whatever it's better than any other gift, because it's not. I'm just saying that it gives me a better understanding to my gift, and then I'm humbled because I'm okay, well, gifts aren't for you. I didn't make this documentary for me. I made it to spread the gospel and everything, and for others. So it's my gift, and if I don't use it, I'm not hurting myself. I'm hurting others. So, yeah, that's kind of what gets me through. I just have to go back and humble myself and be well, I don't want to do this documentary premiere because it's a lot of work, but you know what? I did it anyway, and it was, did I complain throughout the entire thing? Probably. Ask my mom. But I kept having to go back to that and having to be obedient and be okay, well, it's not about me, it's not for me, it's for the kingdom and to grow the kingdom and the body and community of Christ. So yeah, I pray, I press in and everything, but the idea that creation is a gift is what, yeah.
I went before this is all end with this. One of the things I'm so impressed by her is her ability to problem solve. Problem solving is a gift. We try to teach our staff to problem solve. Some of them get it, some of them don't. And it's a gift. And producing, if you haven't figured it out by me talking, is all about problem solving, right? Because problems are going to, when you hire 200 people, you're going to have problems, left and right. And I'm going to give an example of one of the things that we did that she could do this, and she's going to go, I could never do that. During COVID, Lionsgate, at the beginning of COVID, when the entire entertainment industry was shut down, okay, we had a movie that actually opened the weekend that movie theaters shut down. It was called I Still Believe. It was #1 Friday night, and by Sunday, movie theaters across America were closed. And it was heartbreaking because it derailed what would have been a tremendously successful ministry film, as well as a box office that was on track to be really big. And so we sat sidelined for about 3 months, and then Lionsgate called us and went, nobody's making movies, literally nobody's making movies. Do you guys want to be renegades? We'll finance it if you want to just go make a couple of movies right now. And we're like, we're renegades. And so, because we had shot, I Can Only Imagine in Oklahoma, we had deep ties there. I Can Only Imagine is actually the state song because it's like crazy. So we had ties to the governor and all this stuff. So our first call was to the film commissioner, hey, we might come with 2 movies. They're like, oh my goodness, are you kidding? That'd be great, because that's putting a lot of people to work, right? Our second call was to the governor of Oklahoma. And at the time, this was at the beginning of COVID tests. COVID tests were running $200 a test, because there weren't that many of them. Unless you were in an industry that was named an essential business, okay? Somehow, the governor of Oklahoma, we told him what our vision was. This is what we want to do. And we're going to put people to work, because we're going to do 2 movies back to back. The entire industry shut down. But we're not afraid of the virus or whatnot. And if there's enough people that want to work, then this will be good for the state. Here's what we need. We can't do it when we have to test people 4 times a week for 12 weeks, times 2. Because there's 2 movies. We can't do it when COVID tests are running $200 to $250 a test. Think about how much that is. It's millions. It's over $10 million just for COVID tests. And he goes, I have an idea. The federal government was sending money to every state based on their needs. I forget what the act, what it was called or whatever. He's like, we have extra. We're gonna be sending like almost $1 billion back to the feds. I'm gonna make the entertainment industry an essential business in the state of Oklahoma. That was so that we could, so what happened then is Oklahoma State University then processed our tests at $2 a test. So it was an essential business. That's the only way we got those 2 movies made. When Oklahoma announced they were making entertainment, and that was in the media, an essential business, something like 42 states quickly followed. But it happened because the renegades decided to do something to be able to spread the message of the gospel and put people to work. But it takes a problem solver's mentality, which is what this young one is, right? By her sharing my stories, like, wait, you did what? And I'm thinking, okay, if you don't quit, and if you don't give up, you're the one that will be talking to the governor of Oklahoma. You're the one that will be talking to the governor of whatever state, to be able to problem solve, to be able to get your story told, because you have the ability to do that based on what I've seen with your here. So I applaud you. I'm behind you. And I hope, my hope is that it's not an accident that God has called you to the position that you're in. That's my hope. But as I told you earlier today, you're only 20. me. And it's okay if you change your mind. It's totally okay. You have permission, right? Because you should not feel the stress and the pressure of that. But know that you have a gift. And you're so polite. You must have good parents.
Yeah, I do. Shout out mom and dad. They will definitely testify that the problem solving was not a gift, it was learned, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, anyways. So yeah, thank you for that, because it's been my brain is not necessarily the gift. It has to be worked, and yeah, brain's muscle. Anyways, thank you all for coming. Holy cow! I wasn't ever expecting all this. Like I said earlier, I was expecting maybe to post this on Instagram or YouTube, and hopefully it gets like 2,000 views. But we filled, I think, a little over half the theater, maybe like 75%. So that's really cool. Jake, we made a movie, and it's in theaters.
That's crazy.
I can't do a project without him. He's also a gift that God gave me. That is my brother in Christ through and through. So thank you, Jake, and thank you, John, and Cole, and Maddie, and Avery, and mom and dad, and Kevin, and everyone. And Trenton and AMC.
And I'm gonna just throw this out there because this is what I do. I sell. And she didn't ask me to do this, so know that. But there's a little blue collection cup right outside the door. And if you feel like your heart, if you got $1 in your pocket, it all adds up. When we're raising money, it all adds up at the end of the day. But know that you'll be blessed by sticking $1 in there. But more importantly, she'll be blessed. So whatever, I don't carry cash, so I get it if you don't have it. But if you do, and she didn't ask me to do this, but I'm gonna do it because I believe in what she's doing. Drop $1 in there.